Joining me now on set is Nicholas Wu, congressional reporter for Politico, Faiz Shakir, senior advisor to Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, and Sara Fagen, former White House political director under President George W. Bush and an NBC News contributor. Thanks to all of you for being here on a busy Friday. Nicholas, let me start with you. What was the purpose of last night, and did both of the governors achieve what they sought out to achieve with that?
I think what we saw last night was really a channel for a lot of ambition that right now is being pent up by this current state of the presidential field. Biden and Trump are still the front runners and by all accounts are very likely to be the nominees for both parties. And so we're looking at a potential matchup where folks that could be part of a matchup that's half a decade down the line. And so the dynamic that it speaks to is really, a lot of interest in what could happen next cycle, not so much this one.
It's a really great point. Sara, though there is some urgency for Governor DeSantis because he's looking at this crowded field. He's looking at former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, who's been surging in the polls. She's got some momentum heading into Iowa. He is trying to catch up to her. Does a moment like this do anything to help DeSantis stand out?
I think potentially. I mean, certainly he has a huge spotlight shown on him today. There's been a ton of coverage of it, and Fox News is an important vehicle for information in a Republican caucus and New Hampshire primary, Iowa and New Hampshire. So, with that said, and I thought he did very well. I mean, what was great about this debate was that there really was a debate about two governing philosophies, and we so rarely see that anymore in any of the public interactions between the candidates in a primary, and then we'll see if there's even debates between the general election candidates. That's a big open question right now. So in one respect, I thought Sean Hannity did a great service to the political discourse to show there really are two very bright lines here in terms of which way the country moves forward, and both of those candidates engaged in thoughtful debate.
It's a great point, and to see two governors, Faiz, discussing these issues that, frankly, voters care about that could have been a part of a general election debate. But let me just ask you, take us inside your conversations, because my reporting at the time when this was first announced was that some of the president's allies were irked by this, that whether Newsom was intending to or not makes it look like a shadow campaign. Now, you heard him last night defiant, saying he has no ambitions for 2024, and he's not going to get into the race no matter what. But what are you hearing in terms of the reaction today from Democrats? I
think excited. The way in which he animated the Biden defense is done in a way in which President Biden himself doesn't often do. You see fire, you see facts, you see punch, you see passion. The president, by his own nature, is a person tones everything down, peacemaker by nature, easygoing. And here comes the fisticuffs from Newsom. And I think both in the way Newsom engaged it, and remember recently Ro Khanna did his own kind of debate with Vivek. And so I think that there's, from the White House's perspective, I think they know that if this election is just Biden himself, it's not enough. He's got to have an army. It's got to be a team. It's got to be a cause around him. And so you're seeing the allyship, and I think it benefits him.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, what was problematic, I think, for Biden, though, is just how smooth Gavin Newsom is. I mean, as a Republican watching it, I don't agree with any of his politics. I thought he was very Clinton-esque. I mean, he has a skill that very few people, including people who've been in the office of the president, have. And that really shone through last night. And I don't know that that was the best contrast for DeSantis, who was very strong on policy.
On that point on style, it's funny. I was remarking on in the 90s, the West Wing. And in some sense, the liberal conception of the president in the West Wing is a person who's very factual. You get in and you get a lot of, debate. And I think Newsom is that style, right? And it's a different style for this day and age in which people seek authenticity and bluntness and off-the-cuff remarks. But Newsom's much more of a, kind of by-the-book facts and a style that is more akin to like Hollywood.
It certainly was a fascinating night of politics. And our first read team, Mark Murray, made the point that one of the other takeaways is that the issues were the same. The two people debating them were different, but the issues really remained the same. I want to talk about something, Nicholas, that we saw today, the extraordinary events on Capitol Hill. Representative Santos expelled from Congress after that scathing ethics report found that he had a number of ethics violations. Talk about the significance of this. How big of a deal is it?
Well, this is a very momentous moment on Capitol Hill. This is the first expulsion of a member who hasn't been convicted of a crime since the Civil War. And we got to remember that the folks who were expelled after the Civil War fought for the Confederacy, a much different kind of offense here. And so this was quite a step then for 2/3 of the House to step up and say that we didn't want to see this person. And so the office has now been turned over. It's now in the hands of the clerk. Congressman Santos has been expelled. And I think what I'm looking to next is the political fallout from this. What does this mean for the inevitable special election we're going to see in New York's 3rd congressional district?
Yeah, Faiz, what do you think it means? Do you think Democrats are going to win this seat back?
It's going to be epic. I mean, there's going to be so much money spent on this one. It is so much polling. Everyone will overread it, of course, as we often do in these special elections. It will matter a lot. It'll be interesting to see how many bazillions of candidates, first of all, jump into this race.
Yes, bazillions is probably about the right number.
So we'll see if Republicans can clear for Swazi. We'll see. But I also think in general, I mean, I'm queasy about any time you eject a member of Congress. But I think in this time, in this moment, the picture of how he corruptly gained office was as important as the fact that when he was in office, he maintained the corruption. And I think had he rectified his behavior, had he shown that having now acquired office, I am no longer going to engage in corruption, it might have been a different world for him. But that ethics report was telling everybody, this guy's going to, not only is he bad right now, he's going to continue doing it.
Sarah, what's your take, and how concerned are Republicans about holding on to that seat? And we should note that to the point that you're making, Faiz, there were a number of Republicans who said, hey, wait a minute, let's wait and let the legal process play out and see what happens.
Yeah, I think there are some Republicans who had that genuine philosophy and belief that it was a bad precedent until the justice system spoke. I think others didn't want to lose a seat. But to me, this was a very clear case. This guy's a bad actor. He's been a bad actor his whole life. To Faiz's his report, he had no. He continued, even after elective office, to behave badly and inappropriately. He needed to go. So good on the Republicans who voted him out.
Nicholas, just big picture, I kept thinking as I was watching this about all of the work that Congress has to do. How much does this complicate their efforts to try to move on the supplemental request to get more aid to Israel, more aid to Ukraine, aid to the border, aid to Taiwan?
It makes it that much harder of a task for Speaker Johnson and the Republican majority because the House only just returned to its full cohort of 435 members very recently when the new member from Utah was sworn in. Now they're down a member. And with that razor-thin margin, it really empowers any single small group of lawmakers to be the fly in the ointment on things like the supplemental, on things like government funding, and any number of must-pass items that are going to come up by the end of this year.
All right. Well, great conversation. Thank you so much, Nicholas, Sara, and Faiz. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.